they don't run their business based on excuses. There aren't all these excuses being flown around. Well, we can't do this because of that. We can't do that because of this. We have a vision. We have a goal. How do we get there? What do we need to do to get there?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Off the Track, a daily racing form podcast that goes beyond the past performances and the handicapping. We want to know how people got to where they are in horse racing. Today, we have a very special guest, track announcer at Monmouth Park and at Oaklawn Park, Matt Dinerman. We talk with Matt about calling races all over, some of the talented horses he's seen along the way, and of course, the infamous rubber duck collection. Matt, I was just thinking about it and I was looking through the history of the Haskell. Like, how cool is that for you, getting to call races over at Monmouth, at Oaklawn, getting to call these big name horses and thinking about all the great horses who have run in these races throughout history?
Good to be on with you, Gino, first and foremost. Hope you're having a good day. Great to talk with you today for the DRF, and boy, it's a dream come true. I mean, when you practice to be a race caller, when you want to be a race caller, you aspire to call good horses, big races, races that people pay attention to. So it's just a real honor, really, to be able to call at two great tracks like Oaklawn and Monmouth. And when it comes to races like the Arkansas Derby, the Haskell, the Apple Blossom, some of these big races, it's just, you're at center stage, but you know that this is what you want to do. And again, it's an honor to be able to do that. And when you take off the headset, I don't think there was a race that I've taken off the headset that's of that caliber or at a very high caliber where I haven't said to myself something along the lines of, boy, that was a lot of fun, and feeling really great about it.
A little pinch me moment right after that, right? Yeah.
Sure.
So Matt, what's really cool is over at Monmouth, when you see the Haskell, and through the years, it was always a prestigious race. But honestly, I think from about the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s is when it really became like that mainstay as a huge race for 3-year-olds. I mean, you go through some of the names of horses and trainers and jockeys who have won this thing. I mean, as we get into the late 80s, 49er, King Glorious, we're up to Holy Bull, Serena Song, Skip Away, Touch Gold, Menifee, Point Given, War Emblem. I mean, we're talking about a who's who. We get to Lionheart, Big Brown, Rachel Alexandra, Looking at Lucky, Painter. How about American Pharaoh, Exaggerator? I mean, we're talking about a who's who of horses that won classic races throughout the year, that won Triple Crown races, Breeders' Cup winners. I mean, so many incredible horses and horsemen and women along the way have made their stop at the Haskell.
Yeah, and we just saw that last year. My first Haskell experience, Dornoch and Mindframe. Yep. Of course, Mindframe just won a Grade 1, the Stephen Foster. And last year, he was defeated in the Haskell by Dornoch, who, of course, won the Belmont, which is a Triple Crown race, of course. So you just see it year after year. The quality is top-notch in these races. And there's a chance that we might get a pretty heavy hitter this year in journalism. Nothing's confirmed yet. I guess we can talk about that later if we get to that point. But a good list of nominations that actually came out on Monday. And it looks like it's going to be just a really fun race once again. To be able to call a race with that type of history and prestige, it's really fun, and it's actually fairly important to do a good job, because a lot of people listen to those race calls years later afterwards. So you want to do a good job, and you want to describe the moment right for the people. And I think that's why with a race like this, there's nerves. It has nothing to do with messing up. It's more so you just want to do it right, and you don't think about messing up. You don't think about getting something wrong. You can't be going out there scared calling a race. You just can't do it. You have to have inner confidence. But you still want to – it's not that you are scared to screw up. It's that you just want to do it so it's right, and you call the moment right, and you paint the right picture, and you describe it in the right way.
And so far for you, I mean, just thinking about the couple of years, you've had Dornoch and Mindframe. You've been over at Oaklawn Park with Torpedo Anna and Mystic Dan. Even back at Golden Gate, you had a chance to call a Preakness winner, right? Rombauer, who ended up winning the Preakness there. I mean, you have had an opportunity to call some really, really great horses, some all-time horses. Are there any others that are like on that memorable list for you? Maybe not even horses that are Grade 1 winners, but ones that are kind of special to you that'll always go down as horses you'll remember?
Well, I can go back to the Emerald Downs days when I first started out thinking about Striker PhD, who's like the Zenyatta of Washington, even though he was a gelding. He wasn't a filly or a mare, but dead last to first type of move, big fan favorite. People would flock to the track to see him. If you were in the area in Washington and you followed racing, you were at Emerald Downs when Striker PhD ran. The best rivalry to date I've ever called was between Barkley and Mach 1 Rules.
Yeah.
And I mean, if that rivalry was at a major track, people would still be talking about it. I mean, these horses probably ran against each other a half dozen times. And I remember as younger horses, Barkley beat Mach 1 Rules 3 times in a row by about this much every single time. And then the next year, Mach 1 turned the tables a couple times on him. And then a third time, Barkley came back and finally beat him when everybody thought maybe this horse isn't the same horse as he was last year. And coincidentally, a couple weeks ago, there was a horse, and Barkley's turned out to be a stallion in Washington. There was a horse by Barkley that won a stake. And coincidentally, he is owned, or she is owned and trained. It was a filly by the connections of Mach 1 Rules, Frank Lucarelli and Rev Racing. And to this day, even in the winner's circle, they said, boy, back then, I couldn't stand Barkley. He just kept beating us. But today we like him. So
that's so great. Full circle moment, right?
Exactly. A full circle moment. And it just goes to show how much that rivalry meant not only to the racing fans, but to how much they respected the rivalry. And even Joe Withey, who's a longtime Emerald Downs guy, on the microphone giving that interview after the stake race, he said one of the greatest rivalries in Washington racing history. And Washington has a lot of just really amazing, memorable moments, and it has a rich history as well. So that rivalry was definitely something special. I have to add He's Pure Gold to the list. I mean, what he did this past weekend, winning fifth Irish War Cry handicap in a row. I'm sure there's someone out there way back when that has done something like that, but not in the modern day. And he has to be added to the list. He has to be added, because to do that,
you just don't see that
special thing. No. And who knows if I ever will get to call a horse like that ever again.
So we've talked about some of the awesome horses that you've gotten the chance to call. How about Monmouth Park for a breeding ground of the next tier of incredible track announcers? Let's go through the list of some of the track announcers who have recently called at Monmouth Park. Larry Colmus, voice of the Breeders' Cup. Travis Stone over at Churchill Downs. Frank Miramati, Saratoga and Santa Anita. Jason Beam, who's now at Colonial and at Tampa. Chris Griffin, who's on the NYRA. I mean, you got to feel pretty good about where you're calling now, following in the footsteps of that line of really, really talented track announcers.
Yeah, and you got Matt Dinerman, who's at Oakland. No, I'm
kidding. There you go, right? And you're doing both.
Yeah, we're doing both. So, I hate to use the word honor too much, but when I got that call, it was an honor. It's always an honor when a track asks you to be their voice. I see it as an honor. They think something of you. They like your work. They think you can do a good job being a good ambassador, describing the racing action. And you're really, in this job, your customers are everybody. Your customers are the track you work for, the horsemen, the fans, the gamblers, the media people. That's the fun thing about this job. One of many fun things is that you are basically providing your services to everybody in different ways. So for them to call me, knowing the history of announcers that have passed through here, all who are very professional, very high level, do a great job, each and every one of the people you mentioned, to be asked to now step in and be a part of that list is very much an honor. And I think about that a lot, especially at Oaklawn. It was the same way, even Golden Gate. And Emerald. I mean, I just named all of them. Emerald Downs, you had Robert Geller, was the only man who had ever called it Emerald until I came into play. Golden Gate had a very long list of announcers who went on to do big things. It was a big type of track with a good track, good stepping stone for a lot of these guys. Trevor Denman called there. Larry Colmus had a stint at Golden Gate. And then Oaklawn, you had a few announcers, but Terry Wallace, Frank Miramati, Pete Aiello was there. A couple of those guys after Terry, who was there for so long. So, again, with all these tracks, it's just an honor to be part of the list. And you sort of pinch yourself like, oh, my God, I'm part of this list of just amazing race callers, amazing what they do.
So it worked out as you move from Golden Gate, you get the call at Oaklawn, and as Oaklawn season's finishing up, you have time to do another season. So it just works out perfectly. You get the job at Oaklawn. As soon as that's done, you get into the car or the plane, you go right on over to New Jersey, and you're ready there for that meet. So I'm assuming now year 2 at both of these places, probably some things you may have learned about the individual spots that maybe you didn't know before. Give me a couple things maybe about New Jersey and then about over at Oaklawn. What have you learned either about Monmouth or about the people around maybe in New Jersey over there that you might not have known before? They're not New York, but they still do have some darn fine pizza. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I was going to say the food here is fantastic. I think I gained a few pounds last year just because I actually live in Red Bank, and I live about a block from that downtown strip where it's just restaurant after restaurant. And you want to talk about mouth-watering food, you're going to find it no matter what part of the Jersey Shore you go to. I'll start with New Jersey, and then I'll work my way over to Arkansas. I think with New Jersey, the thing that surprised me was just how different it is from New York. It's very much like Del Mar. It's a beach type of place. Everybody's, for lack of a better term, it's chill. Everybody's having fun, playing volleyball on the beach, going to different food places. Monmouth Park has that very much family feel. It's an older track with a lot of history, an older facility. I said, this will be interesting to see what this place is like. You call races with the windows open there. So you feel like you're in the crowd, and you look down there and people are just in the park area. There's all these tables. People go out there, they bring their own beer and their own drinks. They grill they grill burgers on the grill. They just have a great time. It's a family-friendly atmosphere, but that's the whole Jersey Shore. It's very family-oriented, beautiful state. And now I know why they call it the Garden State. It's just really green, really pretty state. But I think I thought it would be a lot more like New York because it's such in close proximity with New York, and it's really not. It's
the vibes very different, right?
Very different. Very, very different. Yeah. And then Arkansas, Arkansas, I had no idea what to expect. And I think if I was there year round, it would be more of a culture shock because I'm only there half the year. It's not quite as much. But, it wasn't as different as I thought it would be compared to California. Obviously, the things to do, it's very different. There is a different culture. But at the end of the day, you've got a lot of really nice people, Southern hospitality, especially in Hot Springs. I haven't been all around Arkansas. There's different parts of Arkansas, and there's different vibes of Arkansas. I think in New Jersey, it's all fairly the same vibes, especially on the Jersey Shore. In Arkansas, different places are very different. But in Hot Springs, it's very much a racing town. And I was surprised how many people from different parts of the country find themselves in Hot Springs for just a small town. It is the largest touring town in the whole state, Hot Springs. It's a very popular tourist destination in that state, Arkansas, the top. A lot of really good people there. And it's definitely simpler living than, say, a California. Definitely simpler living. But people just are really nice, down-to-earth folks who like to have a good time. And like right now, I'm not there, but it's lake season. People are out on the lake. They're fishing. They're jet skiing. They're having a beer. They're barbecuing. It's just, they want to have a good time. It's a simple life, and they love it. And I've come to love Arkansas. I just bought a place there on the water. It's gorgeous, and I absolutely love it there when I'm there.
And they have done an incredible job at Oaklawn over the last few years. And I think it really started during the pandemic when everybody's schedule were just different. Some tracks we didn't know if we were going to be able to run or not. And Oaklawn was one that really took initiative and said, hey, we're able to run. We're going to pick up extra days. We're going to kind of add some stakes races. We're going to bump up anything that we can to draw some horses in. And it felt like over the last 4 or 5 years, they've really caught some great momentum, more and more racing dates, bigger purses. The quality of racing is incredible. Safety has been very, very good. You just hear everything positive over the last 5 years, and in particular, the new track announcer they brought on over there at Oaklawn Park.
He ain't too bad. He's all right.
There we go. But I mean, and you see, just in the last year, you got to call Breeders' Cup Distaff winner Torpedo Anna over there. We had a Kentucky Derby winner, Mystic Dan, come out of there. The product has been great on all ends, right? Quality, quantity, great racing product. It's just a really good energy coming out of Oaklawn right now.
Very much so. And that's credit to Louis Sella. and the Sella family, who of course own Oaklawn. And the people that work with him, what I've noticed about Oaklawn, because I've been to different places, and look, I'm young, I don't know everything, I'm not perfect by any means, but I've been to different places and seen how different things operate. And what I can say about Oaklawn, just from behind the scenes, because everybody's seeing the product, they're seeing, hey, there's a lot of money there. And if you have a lot of money, people are going to flock there, no matter what part of the country you are, especially in horse racing. People will go where the money is. So we understand that. But you see the big purses, you see the big fields, you see the media with all the people there. If you haven't been there, you're assuming, well, this is a place where people love racing. But how did it get to that point? And it's very impressive to think about how they got to that point, because there was a time when Oaklawn was struggling.
Yeah.
Very much struggling. And I give everybody who's in charge over there, whether it be the Sella family, and all the people, Wayne Smith, who runs Oaklawn, everybody, Mr. Jackson, Eric Jackson, who of course was the man who created HHR, historical horse racing, and those types of machines, and the vision that they have. That's the key. They have a vision to everything they do. There's a vision to be great. There's a vision to be a top destination. And my dad always told me, good business people don't run their business based on excuses. They don't run their business based on excuses. Yeah. There aren't all these excuses being flown around. Well, we can't do this because of that. We can't do that because of this. It's, we have a vision. We have a goal. How do we get there? What do we need to do to get there? They put resources into Oaklawn. They continually try to build. And
it's not perfect, right? You're in a place where the weather can be tough sometimes. It can get really, really cold, and they just seem like they make the best of everything. The decisions are generally thought of with the gamblers in mind, which I know you posted something on social media the other day that I like, that a lot of times the people in places of power aren't thinking as much about their customer, the gambler, and the bettor. And I feel like when I'm playing the races at Oaklawn Park, for the most part, it just feels like they're thinking about me also. And that's, as a bettor, when I'm putting my money in, I want to feel that way, right? About where I'm investing. I want to feel like they're going to do me right. And I just, this last 5 years or so with Oaklawn, everything they're doing just seems to be really moving in that direction.
Absolutely. And you're going to see some new things this year as well on the gambling side that are really going to be nice that they're working on, that I've been told about. That they're always having meetings. That's another thing, is they don't just say, okay, go to your lane and swim in your lane. Everybody works together. The culture there, it's a good culture, because if you have an idea, if you're thinking something, they let you speak up. Without stepping on people's toes, without knocking people. You got to do it respectfully in the right way, but say, hey, why don't we try this, or why don't we try that? And they're open to suggestions, and they're open to hearing what customers want. And that's a great thing. And it's a great culture to be a part of, because when you're in a culture like that, you feel that artistically, things that you do, you feel that you can do those things freely, and you feel that you can make a good contribution, which ultimately, for the people that are working in racing, we just want the product to be the best it can be. If we're upset about something, it's because we care. So the culture of Oaklawn is very much open-minded, thinking always about ways to improve the product. They meet up a lot, the executives, the people that work there. What do we need to do? What works? What doesn't work? I'm very impressed since going to Oaklawn to see all of that. And they think about these things. They actually think, and they consciously make an effort to make people feel welcome there. So all these things, I've just been really impressed with the way everybody at Oaklawn goes about their business and tries to become a better racing product. They have the money to help attract people, obviously, but even to get there, they had to do things to make it so that was the case. So kudos to them. I can't wait to be back there, and I love Monmouth. It's not to say that I'm waiting to leave Monmouth necessarily, but I can't wait to get back to Oaklawn. It's a fun place.
In a great spot right now. Year 2 at Monmouth Park, year 2 at Oaklawn, and it'll be coming up on a third at Oaklawn Park next year. But Matt, let's now jump in our DeLorean. Let's go back to the beginning now. How does it all start for you in horse racing? I always like to ask that question, because horse racing is a little bit different. It's a little unique. There's usually somebody kind of pulls you in, or there's some kind of a catalyst that gets you excited or interested in it. What was it for you? Who was the person, or what was the event? What kind of got you interested in racing?
Well, my dad took me to the track when I was probably 10 or 11 the first time I went. And I was just mesmerized by the whole thing. Just fell in love with the pageantry and the horses and the cheering as the horses came down the stretch. It was a really thrilling, exciting thing. And I just fell in love with it right away and wanted to learn more. And as I went more and more, I got more and more hooked on racing. And they say once the bug bites you, it's hard to get away from it. You just fall in love with racing. And I did very quickly, and came to love so many different aspects of the game, whether it be the horses, all the characters you meet at the track, the thrill of watching live racing, the handicapping, getting the puzzle right and being able to say, I looked at this and I predicted this correctly. All of these things really just captivated me.
When did you start thinking about announcing, or when did that kind of come into your head at one point?
Probably about high school. I mean, I think it was always in there, but it didn't quite get to the front of my mind until later, because my dad said when I was young, and I vaguely remembered, I would ask him, well, how does the announcer know the names, and how does he know the links between horses? And I'd probably ask more questions about the announcer than the average person. My brain was sort of in there subconsciously, too consciously, was thinking, this is sort of cool. And then in high school, I just loved going to the races. Watching it on TV was fun, but it wasn't the same for me as being on track. And I just wanted a job on track. And the fact of the matter was, listening when I was in high school, I was very much West Coast. I'd watch East Coast races on TV, but I focused on West Coast. And that was Trevor Denman at Santa Anita and Del Mar and Vic Stauffer at Hollywood Park. And they made my experience better. They helped make it better. It wasn't the entire experience of how the announcer sounded, but they helped make the experience better. So I figured, well, with an announcing job, you get to watch all the races. You see these guys on TV. They do some handicapping, which is something I wanted to do. Initially, my first thought was maybe to do what you were doing at TVG, which is be a handicapper on air. And I thought, being an announcer would be a lot of fun, and you get to be on track and watch all the races. And hopefully I can, if I become an announcer, help make the experience for other people better, just like those announcers help make the experience better for me. And wouldn't that be a cool thing? And on top of that, I would get to stay for the nightcap every day, because my dad would never let us. He rarely, unless he was alive in a pick 5, I'd be a kid and we're
the traffic.
going home for dinner for the last race. Mom's waiting for us. Come on, I want to watch the last race. No, we're going. Now I get to watch the nightcap. I always make sure to remind him that when he watches these things in my interviews.
That's great. Yeah. So as you're learning and as you're kind of figuring this out, what are the ways that you kind of practice or work on your craft as you're young and trying to get better?
Well, in the beginning, like the first race I ever called, I would practice on the TV, but I only did it a few times. And I remember when I was playing my Gallop Racer on PlayStation when I was a kid, I would call the race, but I would imitate.
You're doing Trevor's voice, right?
Yeah, I would do that South African voice of Trevor's or imitate Vic Stauffer, and I'd be calling the race. And then what I started doing is pulling up Cal Race replays and calracing.com. They'd have the replays of all the California tracks. And I started out with small fields. Yep. And Bay Meadows at the time, there was a time during the wintertime where their fields weren't big. So I'd always go to the Bay Meadows races and the names would be on the side and I'd just start practicing. And my family had no idea what I was doing. Like they would see that hear me talking in my room. They were concerned. They were like, "What is wrong?
Is everything okay with this guy?"
For sure. And I wouldn't be doing it in like the middle of the day. It'd be like 10:30 at night, and they'd be like, "What's wrong with him? Like, why is he's got school tomorrow?" And I eventually did that a bunch. And the first time I ever called a race in front of people, we had this talent show in high school, and I was like, I don't have any talents. I played baseball and went to school. That's what I did. I was a baseball player for a long time, and when you play sports in high school and middle school, sports are what consumes your life along with
your
school.
Identity.
So it's your identity. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not going to throw a pitch or hit a baseball. Like, that's a talent, but it's not something for a classroom. And my dad said, well, why don't you call a race? And I was walking hots for John Sadler. So I called a race with a horse that I walked in it winning. And it was Black Mamba, I think it was. She won a race at Hollywood Park. She was a turf horse, and it was a 4-horse field. I was scared to death, and I did it, and the whole class clapped. And I remember at the quarter pole, they all had horses they were rooting for, and they were all cheering. So that was the first time I called a race in front of people, but I hadn't done the binoculars. So I got a job in the press box eventually after 4 years walking Hots for John. And my Uncle Joe, and Aunt Juliet, who live in LA, they at that point knew I wanted to be a race car, and I asked them for Christmas, for the holiday season, to get me binoculars. So I would go record myself and practice every race I could. I became really obsessed with it. I mean, I'd practice every race Del Mar had in the press box. They have booths in there that are quiet. I'm sure you've been in there. So I'd go in one and practice. Then I'd listen, and then I'd pull it up and listen to how Trevor announced it. And it just became a thing where it was like anything that's a specialized skill. I was like, if I want to get good at this, I need to practice every race, and I need to be meticulous about hearing myself, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. I listened to other race callers. I picked out things I liked from them, incorporated in my own thing to make my own style. That took years. But it was all just a meticulous process. And once I started practicing calling races at Del Mar and also did it at Santa Anita as well, I just was all in to be good at it. And that was where the best practice came, was being on track, doing it in binoculars.
So you mentioned some of the announcers that you kind of looked up to a little bit with Trevor and with Vic. Who were some of the people that helped you get your foot in the door as you, in 2015, you become the youngest track announcer in the U.S. at the time, get the job over at Emerald Downs. And another voice that you mentioned a moment ago, who I love that you mentioned, because his vocabulary is unique, and I think he is one of the absolute best. That's Robert Geller.
Yeah, Robert's phenomenal. Like, I don't want to call him underrated, but I know
what you're saying. I think sometimes even being like at Woodbine, he's maybe kind of not in the conversation with some of the others in America,
lost in the
right?
shuffle a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
he's phenomenal. I remember when I went to Emerald, because I had a tryout where I called there. I applied for Emerald with no thought that I had a shot to get it. Didn't think I had a shot. This was when Tom Durkin retired and all these announcers started moving around. And I'm like, I need to get my name out there, because if I don't, then I don't know when is the next time.
You get lost in the shuffle, right? Yeah.
For sure. So and there were a couple people that, including Trevor Denman, who is a big mentor of mine, and Robert Geller. Those are my two biggest mentors. I've had plenty, but those two are the most significant. And Trevor even said, it's going to be tough to get that Emerald job. Just management will hire someone that's got more experience. You have ability. Like, Trevor listened to my tapes and said, you have ability here. This is great. But, he gave me a little bit of advice, but he really liked my calls and thought I had a bright future. But he just said they're going to hire somebody that's experienced. They're not going to take that big of a gamble to hire some young guy that just fresh out of college here who, hasn't called them the mic, because if things don't work out, it's on them. But I applied anyway. I said, I got to get my name out there. And I went up to call 2 races, scared out of my mind. But when I watched Robert call a race and listened to it, I was blown away. I mean, like you said, his vocabulary, he's a wordsmith, be a perfect way to describe him. Fantastic vocabulary, does an amazing job at picking up things like Trevor did. That
very far out of it that you're not seeing, way before they even develop.
Very much so. I mean, I'll sit here on TV today and they'll say, "Oh, this horse is coming," and I'll be like, "What do you mean he's coming?"
I know. I do the same thing.
I'll be like, Robert, how did you know that? I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I couldn't have picked that up. He's very smooth too, like very easy listen, very smooth delivery. The vocabulary, as you mentioned, I mean, fantastic. He's a wordsmith. He'd be a great writer. I'm sure he has written in the past. Very creative man. And Robert taught me a lot and is a very good friend of mine to this day. And he has done just a fantastic time with his career. And he called it Shot 10. I mean, people forget that. There was a time when he was calling big leagues and big places.
And you move from Emerald over to Golden Gate. You get the job there as someone who's a California guy. That has to be really cool for you. But now, as we talk about it, a little bittersweet and very sad that Golden Gate's no longer there.
Definitely. I think the stages of loss came into play when I left Golden Gate. Now, things have worked out for me, Oaklawn and Monmouth. I'm very lucky. But I spent 6 years there. met a lot of good friends, met a lot of good people, really put my heart and soul into that place, as did many other people, and many other people that were there for a lot longer than I was. So just thinking about it, it's a bittersweet thing, like you say. You know, I went through those stages of loss, sadness, anger, uncertainty, all these things, all those stages I went through, even when I was at Oaklawn having a great time, because a Golden Gate, it was a great experience. As we mentioned earlier, you think about some of the people that were in that announcer's booth. There were a lot of really good announcers in the Bay Area that have gone on to do good things. And I was very, very, very honored to have a job like that. And David Duggan, who he managed Golden Gate for many years when I was there as the race caller. Every year I was there calling races, he was the one who managed Golden Gate Fields. And he gave me an opportunity when there were a lot of track announcers from all over the world that had applied there, because it's a great place to be. In California, there in San Francisco, it was you know, the little brother track to Santa Anita, and just very highly regarded. So the fact he gave me a shot, it meant a lot, and kudos to him. And I'm very lucky that he did give me that opportunity. But beautiful place, had a lot of good memories there. Just a shame what ended up being the final curtain call for Golden Gate, because it did eventually shut down. But I was there for 6 years, had a lot of fun, called some good horses. I loved the synthetic racing. It was like turf. It was like turf every race. I mean, just close finishes, exciting finishes. And I will say that the horsemen, jockeys, and trainers, and this is no disrespect to anywhere else, but the jockeys and trainers that were at Golden Gate were some of the best horsemen I have seen traveling all over the country. Very underrated. It's a shame that some of them are still trying to find their stride right now, because they were removed from Northern California, and that's a whole different story for a different day. But you get a lot of good horsemen out of those places, and to be able to call their races, it was a tight-knit community. I mean, we all knew each other, everybody knew one another, and supported one another at the end of the day.
Now, I'm sure for every track announcer getting to call the big races, we talked about the grade ones for you that you've gotten to call, a Derby, a Breeders' Cup. Do you set any types of goals for yourself professionally, or is it kind of like you were hitting on, I just want the people to have a great experience, right? That's your goal as a track announcer, because you do give a little bit more information when you're on track. It seems like you're trying to be helpful for some of those fans and folks who may not know as much. So I'm sure professionally, yeah, you'd love to call biggest races, biggest horses. But then on the flip side, it's about trying to make sure that the fans have that great experience too, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, there was a time early in my career where I had some goals. You know, I had a goal of calling races in California at one time, and I achieved that goal.
Cross that off the bucket list, right?
Exactly. Yep. I had a goal to call grade ones off the bucket list, and now I don't really have set goals. It's just continue to improve your craft. This is a specialized craft, and no matter what anybody says, I think the people that you don't want to take yourself too seriously, but you take the job seriously because you want to do a good job. So that's how I see it. If you get to know me, I mean, I have 290 rubber ducks in my announcer's booth. I do not take myself that seriously, but I take the job seriously. I want to do a good job. I have pride in doing a good job and in doing well for the customers. So with that in mind, I think you hit the nail on the head, Gino. I mean, that's my goal at this point. It's not, well, I want to call a Kentucky Derby now, or I want to call a Breeders' Cup. Those would be nice things. Would I love to do it? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, my goal is to continue to improve my craft, do as good of a job as I can, and hopefully can get better along the way, and be a good ambassador for the sport as well. We're lucky in this profession. You get chances to speak, and you get chances to meet a lot of different people from a lot of walks of life. That's one thing that I've really come to love about this job too, is you get to meet different people. And that's one thing when I wanted to do TV or announcing, now I'm getting to do both, is you in those roles, you get to meet a lot of different people. And I know you can attest to that. So to be able to meet all these people, be a good ambassador, and do the best you can for my racetracks and for the game, that's really sort of my gig there is to do that.
It's such a unique experience too, when you are the person that's in the living room of so many families with them, right? It's like this like intimate experience that you have with them. And my favorite parts ever, and I'm sure you've had many experiences like this, or when you have a person that comes and tells you about something that they remembered that you said, or the way you called a race, or just anything at all that, you come up and you hear from a kid afterwards that they laughed, or those are some of my favorite things. We all want to win money. We all want to win the big ones. But I think for you, so many people hear your voice all throughout the day, or the first time they go to the racetrack. Now you're the Trevor Denman for those people that, you were in that same situation 15, 20 years ago. Right. And that's such a cool experience to have now, being able to be that guy for you. And as you said, you don't take it too seriously, but it was a great tangent right into the rubber ducks, because I had to ask you about them as we get into some of the fun questions now here. Okay. So how did the rubber duck collection start? How big are we now? Give me some of the favorites or some of the memorable ones.
I'll be 100% honest with you. I think when people first see the rubber ducks and have no idea what the context of is, they're a little weirded out in a way. They're like, why is this 32-year-old
grown man? He's got a bunch of toys all over.
Yeah, like I totally understand that. But then once I tell you the story, I know you know the story, but once you tell the story, people think that's amazing. That's really cool. So the story is, I'd go bowling at Emerald Downs with some friends every once in a while, and there was a duck machine where you could grab a duck. And eventually I went and grabbed a few every time I went bowling. I'm not much of a bowler. We just went for fun. But I had about 20 of them in my apartment with nothing to do with them. What's a 20-something-year-old guy going to do with a bunch of rubber ducks sitting around his apartment? It's weird. So I said, I'm going to put it in the announcer's booth. I'm going to put this group in the announcer's booth. John G. Dooley, I remember he would call races, and he would go on air sometimes, and he would have these bobbleheads on his desk. And so would Don Stevens at Delta Downs. I'm like, you know what? I need to make this booth of mine a little more interesting. It's very vanilla in here. So I took the rubber ducks, put them in the booth, took a picture for social media, posted it. And now ever since then, I didn't turn this into the collection. People, the fans, they turned it into a collection. They just started sending me rubber ducks from all over the world, and it's truly amazing. I have about 290 of them now. Again, I've only purchased about 20 of them. The rest you get in the mail. One of my bosses, Jason Milligan at Oaklawn, he'll come up to the booth with a package and be like, I got another duck here on my desk. They'll always deliver it to him for some reason. And
so great.
And it is great. I mean, I'm thinking like Las Vegas, New York, New Orleans, overseas, Spain, France, Ireland. I mean, these ducks are coming from all over the world. And it reminds me of two things. The first thing it reminds me of is that the racing community is a very tight-knit community. And we are all very similar more than we are different, especially people that love racing. The second thing it reminds me of is, hey, there are people paying attention. There are people watching from all over the world. And it just reminds me to be professional and do a good job. And that's a symbol to see the ducks and to remind me, hey, do a good job, work hard for the customer.
Some of the people, one of the first bits of advice I got when I was on live TV and stuff was, you never know who's watching. Just like you said, you never know at the highest level, at the lowest level. You never know if the owner of that particular horse is watching. You never know if some big TV executive is watching, if someone is watching the race, they've never seen a race for the first time. You said it. You want to be professional. You want to be able to have fun, but you want to take it seriously, because for some people, that $5,000 claimer is the Kentucky Derby.
Sure.
Right. That's as important to them. And I'll say it as someone who is covered races at the highest level and at the lower levels. 5-1 is 5-1 anywhere. You can get that 5-1 at any level of any price. So
there it is. Yeah.
Right.
It feels the same. I mean, if you hit a pick six for $10,000 at a C track versus an A track, still $10,000. It's still a score. Any way you look at it. And that's another thing too, is I think the people that are most well-rounded in racing are people that experience smaller racetracks. Some people do not experience smaller racetracks. It's not a knock on them. And some people want to be at the top at all times. Totally understandable. And it's a great thing that they are. But I don't think I would have encompassed and totally understood that, you know what, this track over here that most people aren't thinking about, it's more local. It matters, and it matters to more people than you would expect. And I think I've become, quite frankly, a better person and a more thoughtful person just because I was able to experience a place like Emerald Downs. You think about Saratoga, Keeneland, even Oaklawn, Del Mar, Santa Anita. These are all big tracks. Kentucky, you don't think about an Emerald Downs or as much, or
Delta Downs, places like that. It's really, those are some of my favorite trips too. I got to go over to Presque Isle for the mile, right? In places like that where they are running all the time. There are hundreds of people on the backside all the time. For them, that's the most important thing in the world. Kind of reminds me a little bit, Matt, of like when I started working in TV and broadcasting. I think one of the best things for everybody to do is to work for a little bit as a PA, just to see what it's like from the bottom up and to see how everything operates, because then you understand things on a different level. I kind of understood how some of the behind the scenes things worked when I became more on-air talent, because I had been a PA before and I sort of understood, just like you say, when you see things at all levels, from the lowest levels all the way up to the highest levels, I think you respect, you appreciate everything, everyone just a little bit more. And you have been someone who has had an awesome journey from Emerald and Golden Gate, and now getting a chance to call bigger races, bigger tracks. Let's talk about some of the tracks. Are there any tracks on the bucket list for you that you haven't visited yet? That's like, I got to get there on a vacation at some point, or any tracks that you really, really would like to see in person that you haven't?
I'd like to go to Gulfstream. I've never been to Gulfstream. I'd like to go to Gulfstream in Florida. I'd like to go to Canterbury. Canterbury sounds like a really fun place.
Yeah.
So I'd like
you know what? It kind of reminds me of Emerald. Like the way that Emerald was on those Friday nights when there'd be the whole town comes out there and everyone's buzzing and everyone's got an opinion on the race. Canterbury's kind of like that.
That's what I've heard. It's sort of hand in hand, like Emerald, Canterbury. They both have the same vibe. Lone Star, I'd like to go to. Lone Star looks like an absolutely beautiful track. So those are 3 American tracks that I'd like to visit at some point. I haven't visited Belmont. I will. I'm right down the street here. So once they get everything all renovated there and it's the new Belmont, I'll be able to visit that. But those are some places in America I'd like to visit. I've sort of crossed some boxes out with different tracks around this region. So I'll get to Gulfstream and Canterbury and Lone Star at some point. So it's always fun. As you mentioned, it goes back to the last question, just getting to experience a different place, getting to experience the culture, the people, it matters. And also, I just want to note that when you go to these different places and you work your way up and you work in different places, you realize that you can respect and you should respect everybody's role that they play, because everybody who works in racing, for example, they have a role. Everybody has a role that they're playing. And in order to make the show go, all those roles need to be filled, and you have to have hardworking people in them. And you learn to appreciate them. All the success we have, it's because everybody else also is playing their role as well. So you learn to respect all of these things. And that includes, in my opinion, going to different tracks and understanding that the smaller tracks, it's a big reason why it's a nationwide sport, is because we have smaller tracks. If we didn't have smaller tracks, it would not be a nationwide sport.
Yeah, those people regionally wouldn't stay as interested. They wouldn't have as much. It is kind of sad when we look around and see some of the bigger places right now, like Chicago, for example, right? Or you look at like Boston, for example, right? These big cities that you're like, wow, there's not racing over there, which seems crazy. But as you're pointing out, it's a real cycle, and it's a real, like, you need help at all levels. A racetrack is not an easy operation to run. Getting a horse to a race is a full team effort, right? Just getting one horse out to the track. So when you see places like Oaklawn Park operating like they are right now, I think we as customers really should applaud them, especially in this day and age where we're seeing a lot of contraction. We're seeing things kind of shorten up. I know Churchill in Kentucky, they've done a really nice job recently with having to readjust, but Turfway Park, Ellis Park, Churchill, their purses are really good. They're bumping things up. So, we change as the times change a little bit, Matt, and I really got to continue to applaud Oaklawn, because they're right up at the top of the list for like the vibes right now. Couple more before I let you go, Matt. So, horse racing movies. This is always an important one for me. I mean, some of the logical ones that get mentioned and brought up all the time, you have Let It Ride. Seabiscuit is a fun one. Are there any others or any ones that you can remember growing up that are kind of important to you or fun for you?
One that was really fun was Racing Stripes. I love that movie.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a great movie. I know it was a sad movie, but the Ruffian movie that they put
Yes.
out, that was a good movie. It was a sad ending, but it was a good movie. I didn't want to say Let It Ride or Seabiscuit because those are sort of the big ones. But
Yeah,
I think Racing Stripes, that was a fun movie. That was
I agree.
I enjoyed it.
And if you got a kid and if around, that's definitely one throw on with your kid. They'll enjoy it. You'll all like it. You'll all have some fun. And you kind of hit on this other one that I was going to ask you about. You talked about baseball. So being in California, you a Dodger fan, or are there any other sports teams that you root for, or any other sports besides racing that you're into?
Well, I like football. I do like. I used to follow baseball more, not as much anymore. I just wish the game was more. There's too much analytics now. I
Not
have
as much
lot
feel in the game.
Yeah, I like the human element. I like seeing sports where there's a human element. So, like the NFL is still very good with that. I like the NFL. I follow it. I was a big 49ers fan when I was at Golden Gate. Now I'm sort of stuck again because I moved away.
Yeah.
But I still sort of follow them because I got on that bandwagon. I was a Chargers fan for a while. Once they left San Diego, I jumped ship. I can't deal with that anymore. I've always been a Patriots fan just because my family grew up in Massachusetts and they're big Patriots fans, so I was born into that. So NFL is a sport that I like watching. I like watching March Madness. It's like I like NFL a lot more than I like college football, but I like college basketball a lot more than I like the NBA.
Sure.
So and playoff hockey is
unbelievable.
Phenomenal. I'll watch that every game on playoff hockey.
When you were talking about experiences like on track, hockey to me is like that, going to see a game too. Like if you're not someone who's the biggest hockey fan, but you go to see a hockey game live and you're close and you like feel the cold and you like feel when they get pushed up into the glass, like it's a different experience. And
for sure.
I think a lot of time that is really captivating for the folks that aren't as hardcore of the hockey fans. Matt, before we get out of here, let's just mention quickly, because we are recording before the entries come out for the Haskell. We don't exactly know who's going to run, but as you and I are recording July the 8th, it looks like journalism will be pointing there. Let's just overall talk about this year's group of 3-year-olds. I mean, with Sovereignty, with journalism, with Baeza. You called a really nice horse like Sandman, who looks like he's going to be maybe pointing for some races over at Saratoga. This group in 2025 of 3-year-olds at the top is as good as I can remember for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, phenomenal group of 3-year-olds here with Sovereignty journalism. Who's to say they aren't the top 2 dirt routers in the country, including other horses? I mean, just a really good group. And a horse like Sandman's a very nice horse who won the Arkansas Derby. He just was unfortunate. It's like a Sham and Secretariat. Sham was just unfortunate to be born the same year as Secretariat.
Yep.
And I think there are a few horses that are like that. I've been looking at my phone because people keep texting me because I guess they just announced journalism's supposed to be running, pointing for the Haskell as we were recording this. So you get my live reaction. Delighted to hear that.
He heard us talking about him, right? The birdie. He heard us. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. We got some good birdies connected that can give us some information. But yeah, just a really good group, and we're expecting to have a good group. The nominations came out recently for the Haskell. Burnham Square won the Bluegrass Grade 1 winner at Keeneland. He's projected to run. Gosker ran second in the Preakness. He'll be back trying against journalism, assuming journalism does indeed run in the Haskell and things go to plan. Goal-oriented, a very nice Bob Baffert horse. He's projected to be here. That's his Haskell horse this year. And even Moplex is apparently on the list of contenders. He won the Ohio Derby. So in terms of like the Haskell field alone, it's going to be another very good race.
And want to just give all of the positives to the ownership group of journalism, to McCarthy, because in this day and age, as we've been talking about, we don't see horses run as much, and they knew they had a horse who was feeling good and they were going to put him out there for all of the big fights to fight. And he was there, and you know what? He showed up in all of them, and he just ran into a horse who was a little bit better, who got a better trip, who was better on those days. But I really applaud them. And I loved how all along throughout the Triple Crown, they were saying, yeah, you know what? If he's good, we're going to run in the next race. We're going to run in the next race. They weren't afraid of running. And that just reminds me of when we were a little bit younger, before we kind of had this load management and before we had this sort of, you're talking about analytics, being really worried about running too much or playing too much or too many minutes in basketball or things like that.
Yeah, and I have to say with with Michael McCarthy. I've gotten to know Michael a little bit. Super good guy. I remember calling him I used to write the news and notes at Golden Gate. He liked to run horses at Golden Gate. He was very supportive of the Northern California product. And he always answered his phone and always took the time. And we got to know each other pretty well. And I'm just so impressed with him. Very classy man, always willing to take time to chat with people, the media. And I think about all the good horses he's already trained and all the horses he does train. You don't think of a single instance where you look and you say this horse was mismanaged at any point. He's a great manager of horses, does a really good job getting them fit, ready to run, seems to know exactly what he needs to do to make sure that his horses are sound, ready to run. He knows when to stop on horses. I think he's a phenomenal trainer, and I think he's done a great job. And I'm not just saying this just because journalism is about to run in the Haskell. I'm fired up to hear that. But Michael, I'm very impressed with him and the way he runs his operation. And you have to give, like you said, a lot of kudos to Aaron Wellman and Eclipse. They're not backing down. This is horse racing. They want to run, and fans want to see it. And people are getting involved more so when they see this type of activity versus, well, we're going to run 3 times a year and retire young. It's great to see journalism running. And he's sort of an old throwback horse, right, Gino? Like he's just this big, strapping, beautiful, athletic horse. And he doesn't have a running style, I think, to where he's got the build for it, but he's not like a speedy go type of horse. So I think he can take care of himself pretty good. He gets in a good sort of rhythm. He has a good cruising speed, and then he just kicks on. So he doesn't have to go hard the whole race. And I think that helps his longevity and him being able to run more races because I think he can recover better that way. So all things considered, just a lot of fun things going on in the 3-year-old division this year.
I just remembered one more thing that I wanted to ask you about before we go, because you are a guy who's been around at Oaklawn the last couple of years. We just had a really huge loss with the coach, D. Wayne Lucas, who was like such a big part of Oaklawn. And while it's always sad when you lose a legend like this, I see all the positive things that people have been saying and the stories and the memories, and everyone's got a coach D. Wayne Lucas story. If you can, just for a minute, like talk to us what a big presence he was over there at Oaklawn Park, and anything you might have, any experience you may have had with him over the last couple of years.
He was a larger than life type of guy. I mean, him just as an older gentleman, because I didn't know him obviously when he was younger, but even as an older gentleman in his late years, when he's coming out on his pony, it wasn't like he just walked by like most people, or he just went by. Like people look, there was this aura, this very special aura about him. Like this man and he brought positivity. Like he was a very positive guy. He was very realistic about things in terms of just how things were going, but he was a very positive man. And I don't regret a lot of things. I live like, let's live so we don't have many regrets, but I will regret, and I do regret not going back to his barn as much as I probably should have. I went there a few times, got to talk to him a few times. Very motivational. I mean, he's the type of guy, if you were feeling down, you just got to go to Wayne, because he's going to fire you right back up. There's just something special about him. He was a special individual. And I tweeted it out. It's like, you know what? Like, yeah, sure. All of his accomplishments, the things that he did that revolutionized the game of horse racing, sure. Very important, very inspirational even, very important. But I think what's, you said, more profound is when you read all these things that people are writing about how much influence he had on human beings and people. And yes, he lived at a time in the 80s and 90s where he was competitive during that time. And not everybody loved D. Wayne Lucas back in his peak. They wanted to beat him. He was the gold standard. And he'd show up in his suits, and he had his own private plane that he'd fly around in.
He was confident. He knew he was good. And like you said, he knew he had good horses. He knew he was there to win big money. Yeah. And it is very interesting to see how, as he's gotten older, he's, as what I think a lot of people do, you soften a little bit, but you become this great ambassador. And as you were pointing out, like, I'll remember some of the horses, but for me, it's remembering like the stories that other people told, or the jokes, or those are the things that seem like they're carrying more weight with people than other derbies and the big races that he won, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that again, and I apologize. I've been going off on a spiel on a few of these different
topics. That's why we're here.
Anyway. But that's what basically what you said is at the end of the day, and that's how I think it's like when you look at how many people he inspired, it's like, wow, that means more than how many races you win. Because it like for me, for example, like if I'm a race caller and people like my work, it's wonderful to hear people say, like, we really enjoy your work, or we really like this call, or this call was memorable to us because of this. And that's wonderful. And I love to hear it. It makes me feel great. But what makes me feel the best is when I hear people say something along the lines of like, oh, I've heard nothing but good things about you, or I've heard you help this person and you are classy over here. Like that to me is what matters. And that's what matters to legacies of people is what did they do to make the world a better place and help other people? And were they selfless? Did they give back? Did they try to help other people? I think that speaks volumes. And knowing how Wayne was that way to so many people, it speaks volumes of his legacy. Yeah, he was a great trainer, but what I'm going to remember him for is that man had an amazing impact on human life.
Matt Dinerman. We are very, very lucky to be able to chat with Matt. I got to say, through the years, Matt, anytime I've ever asked you, can you come on and help us with the talking to race? Can you come on with an interview? Anything, you have always been absolutely whatever you need. I'm happy to do so. If I asked you for 15 minutes, you gave me 30, and you have been a really great ambassador for the sport. And I think for years to come, people are going to be hearing your voice and telling stories just like you did about the Trevor Denmans and the Vic Stoffers and the people that got them into it. So it was awesome chatting with you. Thanks so much for, taking us through your life and telling us a little bit more about you that people may not have known. We got to keep building up that rubber duck collection. And I love hearing your voice calling those big races, man. So good luck calling the Haskell and the United Nations and all those big races. And we look forward to chatting to you again real soon.
Should be a lot of fun, Gino. Thanks for having me, and always a pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks so much for listening to episode 3 of Off the Track Podcast with guest Matt Dinerman. Make sure to subscribe to the Off the Track Podcast on Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music, and the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel.